Manisha, welcome.
Thank you so much, Liz. It's been a pleasure to have been put up on your wonderful book club, and I'm very excited to be around talking to you about the women pilot in India.
No reason to stay on ground. Lift your hands and you can touch and fly.
Happy International Women's Day to all the women around the world, particularly those who have an interest in aviation. Today celebrates both the observation of women's rights around the world and coincidentally marks the anniversary of the first licensed woman pilot in aviation history, Raymond de la Roche, who earned her pilot's license on this date in 1910. In honor of Women's History Month this year, we're celebrating our women in the airlines with the book From Sarees to Stripes, True Stories of Commercial Women Pilots in India. India leads the world in percentages of women pilots at 12%. I'm excited to talk with the book's author, Manisha M. Puri. I can't tell you how wonderful it was to find your book. I'd heard about the first Indian pilot and searched for books about her. And then when I saw your book came out the past year, I was so excited to include it and to celebrate Women's History Month and the history of our women airline pilots by talking about the women in India, because you comprise the highest percentage in the world. And I can't wait to hear from you about why you think that is. It's a gorgeous book. I want to say it's beautifully put together. I love the cover. I love all of the pictures that you included of the pilots. That was wonderful for us to see. So tell us a little bit about you and then in your career.
Okay, so I come from a small town, what you say in India. I was brought up in a little town in the heart of India. Bhopal got more famous because of the Union Carbide gas tragedy, which happened way back in 84. And that was a small town where I was raised, brought up, and I would say I wasn't born with this passion to become a pilot, but like every other person, looking up in the sky and seeing this aircraft go was a fascination. And while studying to become an IAS officer, an Indian Administrative Service Officer, I looked at an advertisement which was offering free scholarship for 60 hours by a big corporate company of India, Godrej. And I quietly applied for it. And I must say there were no girls who applied at that time in 1985, 86 in Bhopal Flying Club. And I was just very lucky to have got that scholarship, because from there I flew and it was never looking back. But I must also admit that while I did not inform my mother, I had lost my father. She would wonder, morning I'm going for my coaching to be in the administrative services, while I would be quietly going to the airport to try this new passion because I was on scholarship. And as soon as it became more from first takeoff to first airborne, that experience, you are a flyer yourself and you know what you feel just getting airborne, that beauty, the horizon, and it's still in back of my mind. I'm talking of 86, more than 30 years. And finally, I decided that this was it. This is what I want to be. Working in any office, moving files from left to right, 9 to 5 is not my cup of tea. This gave me a freedom which I thought I will not get anywhere. The sky looked so beautiful, and that passion kept growing. And when I made that announcement at home, my family freaked out. My brother said it is time for her to get married. She's going bonkers. They absolutely couldn't believe that there were women flying and there could be a job for a woman at that time. And like I have mentioned in the book, all of us had to face challenges at every step, from home to the flying clubs, to the peers, to the colleagues. Yet we were so focused and determined, and we never looked back. All of us got into the cockpit of various aircrafts like Boeings, the jumbos, the 787 latest, and have flown across entire world, all airfrees, critical airfield, everywhere, handle emergency. So that's the little brief. I would say my journey started by that little 60 hours of flying scholarship, which gave me that, I would say, my first feed into the air.
Your story and everyone's stories are so inspiring. But before we leave this, I wanted to just emphasize the culture that you were up against, because this was the 1980s. I was a teenager at this time.
Absolutely.
And I didn't, in my country, I didn't have any sense that those attitudes existed. And so this idea that you had to hide this from your family until you knew that you were going to do it because everybody expected you to get married, that was very much a part of your culture, correct?
Absolutely. That was the thing. I have an elder sister, and that's exactly what happened to her after her graduation. She just got married. But as a child also, I think I just wanted to do something different. I would have been happy being a police officer, but I think that P became common and I became a pilot. That's what I tell people. So, but yes, our culture was very different. Women in 80s, thinking of profession was really not every family allowed them to do. And then a profession like flying, to be a pilot, it was really unheard of. And but like I have mentioned in my book, I used to read Richard Bach's books a lot, and Illusion was one of my favorite at those days. And I used to always think of that quote: "You're always given a wish to do something. Only thing you have to work hard for it." And I know I had this dream, and I had to work hard, and I have to prove myself. And so it took me a while to convince my family. And in those days where there were no, even telephones were a big luxury in India at that time. Mobiles were out of question. Internet was nowhere to be known also. There was no Google search like I tell children when I go to schools and college to talk. But I was asked to let them know whether there are any women who are flying.
I thought that was so interesting that before they would agree to let you do it, they needed to see someone else doing it. That was so fascinating.
Yeah. So there were 3 girls. I searched. I talked to 100 people. Every ATC I would go, "Sir, if there is any women pilot's voice, please let me know. I want to meet them." And then I discovered there were 3 girls flying in my country: Captain Sudamini Deshmukh, Captain Nivedita Basin, and Captain Anila Bhatia. And it was like my world opened up. And I was so excited, and I went and gave these names to my family. They thought I was bullshitting. They said, "We don't know." And then I searched and researched and managed to get Captain Sudamani's address. I wrote a letter to her. There was no mails and all that. Computer was nowhere in scene. And I wrote a letter to her. She was in Calcutta, and while I was in Bhopal. I thank Captain Sudamani. She was the first in our country to do the first all-women flight in the world. She responded to my letter and said she would be happy to meet my family to let them know, yes, I am flying with the airlines. And that's how I would say, the road or the runway opened up for me to fly higher. And so after meeting Sudamani, I think my journey started. And, I came to US, to Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, Meacham, and I did my CPL from there. I had a FAA license, and I was in Meacham Field, and I finished my CPL and then went back and was lucky to have got myself a job in Indian Airlines, which now is called Air India. It got merged in 2007 as Air India.
I want to apologize on behalf of my country for the experience that you had in Texas when you were there.
Yes.
While we're talking about that, I would just want to mention I'm very proud to know a woman here locally who is the past president of the local chapter of the 99s, which we will definitely talk about later. Her name is Yogini Modi, and she owns and operates a flight school in Homestead. It's Pilot Flight Training Center in Homestead. And I have had the pleasure of meeting several young Indians who come over to train here. So to all of you ladies in India, if you're looking to train in the United States, consider Yogi's school in Homestead, Florida.
Yes, that's a good information list because there are many who do want to come and they are looking for a school where they would have a friendly atmosphere and, they would be flying as soon as they can to complete their requirements and license and everything.
Yeah, and they'll have a better experience than you had in Dallas, Fort Worth.
I must also say this, my experience, if you read Captain Sodamani was completely taken care by the 99s in the West Coast, Los Angeles, California. And since she
Wonderful
was
story,
with them,
yeah.
and she had a smooth journey. But unfortunately, in Texas, Dallas, I would say, and I was the only Indian girl in that school at that time, and they just thought, we would not even know how to speak English. First, they tell me, would you take lessons to speak in English? I said, I think I can understand the air traffic controllers pretty well. I've been educated throughout in an English medium school, and I would like to start my flying and not waste time. You see, so those hiccups we went through, probably the Indians were not, people didn't have much information about our country or didn't know that, there is a disparity, there is have-nots and haves, and I think that's all over the world. And it's every kind of people that make up India. It's not just people who cannot go to places or, can't speak English or other language. So I guess today world knows where we are. So that's an important
That is true. So you finished, when did you retire from the airlines and what led you to write this book?
I took my voluntary retirement in 2016. I had a little medical problem. I was involved in a Boeing accident in 1993, where we had to make an emergency landing. And during that course of that emergency landing, I had a whiplash injury. Over the year, that backbone has become little. So I have a little issue. And for that reason, I could not do very long flights as, those years I was much younger in 93, then in 2014, 15. So in 15, I was medically grounded and I was given a ground job. And I think flyers do not enjoy sitting in the office. I did not like it. And I thought I took a voluntary retirement because I wanted to write about the history of this women pilot in India. And post my retirement, I sat down seriously. It was in my mind since 2000, because there were many incidents. We would be handling such weather, such emergency, and after landing, some people would want to meet the captain, but when they were told she's the captain, they would say, no, she must be the helper. Please, can we meet the captain? This is happening in 2010, 25, And I thought people don't even know girls have been flying here since 1966. So that was in my mind. And I seriously sat down and started collecting data, starting planning how I would write to make a book on the history of how we started and where we are today. So if you see, the book starts from the 30s to the millennium. And then I worked how I want to pick up, because we are still maximum number of women pilots. So I wanted to pick up those who in their own way created their own history by being who they are. And each one, if you see the first cabin to cockpit, she was the first in the world. Then my Millennium Girls, the two sisters, the first two sisters in India, They were 7 and 11 years old when their father, Captain Devi Sharan, from senior to me in the airlines, aircraft got hijacked to Kandahar. Three terrorists on board. From Kathmandu, he was to come to Delhi, but the terrorists hijacked the aircraft. It went to Dubai. From Dubai, it was in Kandahar. For 20 days, there was a turmoil. We did not know whether the crew and the aircraft and passengers would come back safely. The government of India intervened. They had to release some terrorists from India to have the aircraft back. The girls were 7 and 11 when that incident happened. But they told me, ma'am, when we saw our father come back as a hero, we decided we wanted to be what he is. And the two girls are flying today, one with Air India as a commander and one with Indigo Airlines as a commander. Indigo is our low-cost carrier airlines. So, these stories by themselves are so, they are their own history makers for their profession. That's what I felt. And so the book came up and also I wanted to really give my tribute to my seniors, Captain Durga Banerjee, who broke the glass ceiling and made it a bit easy for us, how she struggled and continued for years before she was finally inducted in. So that itself was my inspiration to write this book.
And you mentioned that women started in the airlines in India in 1966, but you begin the book in 1936. Tell us about your first female pilot in India.
The first lady, while Amelia Earhart was flying in US in 30s, we had our little Amelia in the name of Sarla Thukral, who got married at the age of 16. And I met Sarlaji when she was 93 years old. All the things I've written about her is what she told me when she was 93 years old. She pulled out her trunk and gave me her diary, which she used to write while she was flying in 30s. So that itself and the title comes up from there because she, at that time, India was so orthodox. The women were married at the age of 16 and 17. They could not wear other clothes than the Indian clothes, and sari was one of the outfits she used to wear to go to fly. It was very difficult. She said I had to manage my sari flying because it was biplane, but the feeling of getting up in the air, I would forget where my sari is flying. So I thought she kept the Indian tradition and she managed to be up in the air, saris to stripes it where we have reached. So though she could not become a commercial pilot because in 40s, the country was divided, there was partition, and in that turmoil, she had to leave everything. She lost her husband, she came to India, and with her two daughters, so she could not pursue her passion of flying. But her story was needed because she was the first woman having the British Indian license as a private pilot license, PPL. And so I wanted to give her that, even though she was married at 16, she was so fond of reading and studying and doing that. Her father-in-law, her husband said, no, first you learn how to ride a bicycle, then a car, then talk about flying, because her husband was a pilot. But her father-in-law was seeing her enthusiasm of learning how to ride a cycle, how to drive a car. He took her to the Lahore Flying Club.
I thought that was wonderful. That was a really wonderful aspect of that story from my perspective. Just the very forward-thinking men who were supporting her.
Yes. And, Liz, the book, why I started with Sarlaji, because from where Sarla left as only a PPL, private pilot license holder, Prem Mathur was the first CPL holder in our country in 50. And she became a commercial pilot license. And throughout the journey, she kept fighting. You will see the letters which were written to the ministry of hiring her as a pilot. She was highly qualified. And the reply would be, because you are a woman and no airlines in the world is, we've not heard of any airlines in the world hiring women as pilots, so we cannot hire you as. So then Durva took it further ahead as becoming the first. So these were the three ladies who actually started this journey of being in the air.
One of the things that I've noticed after reading so many books featuring women in aviation is that there are some common themes and common threads that are kind of woven across all of our stories. And some of those are things like harassment and discrimination and how we deal with motherhood or overcoming cultural norms. But there are some more positive touch points that I wanted to go through. And one of them we already kind of touched on a little bit was the 99s. And you mentioned this wonderful, so this wonderful history of how India came into the 99s and how the the Indian Women Pilots Association was formed. Share that story with us.
Yeah. So there were these, like in the US, we also had many of these women flying in Bombay Flying Club who were passionate in flying, but they were just hobby flyers because they could not even think of that they will get an opportunity to make it as a profession. During one of the times like that, uh, Chanda Budapati, who lives in Arizona, Mohini Shirov, and Rabia Fateh Ali with Sunila Bhajikar and another lady. For five of them in Bombay Flying Club sat down and thought there must be more girls wanting to fly, so let's start an organization where we'll keep a record of women pilots in India. So the organization of Indian Women Pilots Association started. They just wanted to have a little organization where they wanted to write down how many women are in this field or in a passion of flying. While they were doing that, one of the 99s was coming. I've written it more in detail in the book.
It was Isabel McRae Hale from El Cajon.
Yes, and she came through a ship while at dock, and when she saw these women flying, she was fascinated because she never thought India would have any women in the flying clubs. And when she saw that, and she contacted them, and she told them about the 99s. But during that time, our government would not allow us to pay in dollars. We could not do a foreign exchange. And it's thanks to that section in the West Coast that they paid up for these women till the time we had the policy where we could pay ourselves, and we had an India section of 99 established. I mean, for us, 99 has been our sisters throughout, We all have, when I was in the US, any 99 I contacted were ready to help in every.
I love that. And then it's Sadamini. Is that how you say her name?
Sudamani. Sudamani, yeah.
Sudamani.
Yeah.
I knew I would do that. I was going to butcher somebody's name. And she came to Los Angeles, and she had the pleasure of being instructed by several women pilots, including Wally Funk.
Yes, absolutely. The woman selected for the space ride. Yes, absolutely. Wally became a good friend of Sudamani. In fact, do you know, they all sponsored Sudamani's complete flying, even lent their own aircraft. And we really owe, I mean, like I said to you, 99s are our sisters, really. They are so warm-hearted, and we have grown together over the years because of this association.
Well, I am a lifetime member of the 99s. And so when I come to India, I can't wait to meet you all.
Definitely. And you are more than welcome to come and stay with us. And especially be my guest and be at my place. It'll be a pleasure.
So one of the other wonderful things that is very common in a lot of our stories going back through our history is this entry point of gliding. And I saw many of the stories where young women, too young to start their training, started by gliding. I had never been in a glider until last year. So I started in military flight training and did all of my flying, for my career in the military. And it wasn't until last year that I started gliding, and now I go as often as I can. And I just think I'm a total convert. I think everybody should start their flying career in a glider. And then I just want to mention, because it's, so common in your book, that there is a young lady that I know here in the gliding school where I train who started, she soloed when she was 14 in the glider. And now she's a glider instructor and she flies the tow plane, and she's 18 and she has hundreds of hours of flight time already. So it's very inspiring.
Yeah, and Nivedita and Indira were the ones. They were so fascinated to become pilots, but they were told you are too young. So they didn't give up. They got into gliding and they were lucky. They got an opportunity. I have never done gliding. I started with, like I said, with the scholarship on a Pushpak aircraft, the tail plane, then graduated to Cessnas when I came to the US. So I guess each year and each time there was different. And this is what the book comes up to, from the Tiger Moth to the Pipers to those gliders, the Pushpak and Cessna, how the aircrafts have moved over the year, the history not only with us, also the history of the airplanes that where we have moved and advanced over the years. And of course, the airport and all the aids. And today, like, you can actually fly blind, you can land. And when you talk to the general public outside, they get scared. Don't close your eyes while landing. I said, no, we can auto land. Don't worry. We close our eyes and we land.
So, and then one of the other things that I saw sort of as a common part of our culture that we share is this. What's the NCC stand for?
National Cadet Code.
Yeah, so we have the Civil Air Patrol in the United States, which is sort of the version for our young people to get a taste of what the Air Force is like and to start learning to fly. So I saw many of your women started in the NCC.
Yes, in the college you had options to join the NCC, and that is how some of them actually got into flying, because they learned about flying after joining the NCC, National Cadet Corps, and they used to go for excursions and the camping and the airports and all. And that's where we have 3 of these girls who were NCC and who later took it up as a profession.
Yeah, and we read about that also when we read Mindy Hickson's book. She was in the Royal Air Force, so the UK has a program like that too. I think those programs are amazing for getting our young people involved. And then the last one that I thought was really interesting were the flying clubs. And maybe you can tell me how a flying club differs from a flying school. And because I was just really surprised at how many of the girls were exposed that way to aviation.
Flying club is what they are called here. They could be flying schools actually, but the Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Udan Academy, that is was a complete academy because it had the ground classes. It would first give you the ground classes, get you into all the examinations, and then make you go through a simulator before they make you flying. Whereas in the flying clubs of different states, like different cities, there would be no ground classes except the instructors giving you ground lessons, but you had to go by yourself to study the air navigation, the regulation, meteorology, and engine specific and general, and clear the exams yourself. But in the academy, everything was under one roof, and you could, like a college, you could be under one roof. But in those days, in the 80s, we had only one academy, which was Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Udan Academy. And when I started flying, it had not opened up. It opened up just when I was leaving for the US. And I would have joined the second batch of the academy, but I decided I'll go to the US since my family has finally agreed, let me run away and get my CPL.
There were a couple of women, at least one, and you'll have to say her name so that I don't mess it up, who went from the cabin to the cockpit.
Yes, Captain Lakshmi Malhotra Nagrat. Now she is Captain Nagrat. She married Krish Nagrat, her batchmate. So Lakshmi was the first woman, in fact, in the world who graduated from cabin to cockpit. She's covered in the Limca Book of World Records as cabin to cockpit. And post her, many women have moved from cabin to cockpit. And she tells her journey that she became a cabin crew, and within 6 months she was so bored. She said that didn't seem so challenging, and I would peep into the cockpit every time, and I would be fascinated by seeing all those lights and switches and the way things move. And so I thought, and I spoke to a couple of captains, and they encouraged me. And then she took leave from the airlines, went to a flying school, and got herself a license, got back into the airlines, and became the captain. Today she's flying 787, Boeing 787, the Dreamliners.
That's so great. There were a couple of Indian subcultures that you mentioned that I was hoping that you could help us understand. I mean, I Googled them, but since you made a point of them in the book that you could help us understand, and I know I'm going to butcher it, but I will say it as well as I can. So one was the Marwari.
Yeah.
And the other is the Gujarati.
Yes. Sapna, yes. Sangeeta Khabra, Sangeeta Bangar now in the book. Sangeeta was a Marwari, and in Marwaris, women are not even thought of as to get higher education. If they are up to school, that's good, and they are considered that that's good because finally their life would be as married women looking after home and husband and things. But her grandmother was very, very open-minded, and she said, my grandchildren, especially my daughters, will be educated and they would be given whatever field they want to. And in the bargain, she says, Sangeeta says, in my family, the boys are less educated than all the girls. And she fought that barrier. She was the first Marwari woman who came out in the 80s to become a pilot. And, Liz, even till today, I'm sure even your side of the world, people do look up, they don't find that women would be so much flying. And I mean, hats off to you. You've been in the US Coast Guard and, flying the coastal and helicopter. It's a different challenge by itself. And with the armed services, our armed services opened up this profession for women much, much later in 20s now. So, even till today, people, when they hear who you are and what you've done, there is a little kind of, a surprised look and awe on their face. So having said that, a Marwari who is, they think would not even go for a graduation degree is actually flying and joining the airlines. And the second challenge she had to face is she's not very tall. So when she wanted to become a pilot, first thing they told her, go first check whether you'll be permanent. You'll reach the radar and you'll be able to fly and manage a single engine. So she said, first thing I went to check my height, whether I'll be fit to fly or not. So, all these things put together when we are flying and we've got hours and hours and hours in our logbook and we've done all routes, it all seems like a big joke and we can laugh about it. But when we were going through that, every step was like, oh my God, now this, now that, will they let us? Every step people used to discourage you. And at the end of the day, there were times we used to pat our own shoulder when we had got that aircraft down, wind shear and lightning and thunder, and get that aircraft smoothly down. Still, there were people who said, landing was not smooth. I said, bloody hell, see the weather outside, you are on ground, safe and sound.
Let's see you do it.
Yeah, times we used to just pat ourselves. Yeah, today we've done a good work. We've got this aircraft down. I had, of course, emergency landing was something different. I went through 2 years of court of inquiry because of that. We were the first.
Why don't you tell that story? You describe it very well in the book, but tell us that story because that was crazy.
I've not described it in length for a reason that my second book is going to be completely on that. Second thing.
Oh.
And second thing, Liz, for very long, I would not talk about it. People in the airlines thought I've written off. I will never be back in the cockpit. But I proved them all wrong. People would talk, oh, she'll never come back. She's a woman. And, they thought, one crash and she'll never come out of that trauma. I proved them wrong. In fact, my captain, I was a co-pilot. I was new at that time. My captain never got back to command. I got my command. I flew Airbuses. I flew all routes. I'm not trying to boast, but I'm trying to say it's your personality. It's who you are and how you handle situation, how you handle your emergencies, how you take every emergency, even a smallest one at home. You are a mother. I'm a mother. You know day to day how things happen, unfold. No emergency tell and come. But you have to handle. In life, we all go through various situations. If we don't move forward, we are nowhere in life. And like I tell people, my profession has taught me every takeoff is in the headwind. I go through the headwind and I know that's the right way out because I come back safely on ground. So I can follow, I can really face every challenge because I take off in headwind and I can come back safely. So this is how I came back. And then once I got my command, people stopped talking and then they started, play. We were the first crew who survived that accident till today because the way the aircraft was broken into 3 pieces, there was 8 tons of fuel, there were a loss of lives. We could not save 50 people. 52 we could save from the first half of the airplane. Aft, no doors open. There were many things to that. And if I start telling you, it's like a full, book by itself.
Well, I can't wait to read it. But just what I understood from the book was that on takeoff, the wheel caught on a truck that was loaded high and it caused the aircraft to crash on takeoff, fully loaded plane, correct?
The runway was a short runway in Aurangabad at that time. Post the accident, it got extended as a fact-finding body. Perpendicular to it was this national highway, which was declared as part of my clearway. All the charts for our takeoff weight were made as per this highway as part of my clearway. There were 2 barricades on either side to stop the traffic flying during takeoff and landing. 7 years before my accident, one of the barricades got lost and nothing was done about it. The truck came in. The truck was solid body up to 11 feet, overloaded by another 11 feet, cotton on wooden plank. So that became again a solid body. While I was in my takeoff first segment where my wheels were to go up, but while I pulled the lever up, the wheels had not completely gone. One of the wheels hit because as part of my clearway, I'm not 35 feet above the obstacle. I'm supposed to have no obstacle in that takeoff part. It's my clearway. This obstacle is 22 feet in front of me. My everything changes. My takeoff run changes. My takeoff weight changes on that short runway at a high elevation. My wheel hit. It got sheared off. It went and bounced and hit my left engine and left stabilizer. In the cockpit, I had left engine failure. We did not know what damage it had cost us. That was post-accident inquiry that we realized that why aircraft was not climbing and why it was marching to the left. Because our left was completely gone, engine was hit, the left stabilizer was jammed because of that wheel shearing. So we had no choice. We couldn't even make a 360-degree to be back on the runway. We had no choice but to see any barren land to bring the aircraft on ground. This was the first CVR as per the coach record, which had a proper mayday call, even giving the heading of the aircraft, because I did not know at that time. Everything happens in minutes for us. I did not even know where will I come out, whether I'll come out, because I knew back of my mind, we are at takeoff, we have 8 tons of fuel, and everything's going to blow up. I'm crash landing. I did not know what damage my aircraft has already gone through. So we were lucky we came out. Our cockpit cabin door got stuck. We opened our emergency windows of the Boeing and we jumped off the cockpit. The nose wheel had sheared off, so it was not that high. But we could not save anybody from behind because the doors got jammed because of the crash. The alignment changed and the doors did not. So it wasn't.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it was combination of factors that led to that accident. And the fact-finding body has documented all that. And Liz, for the next 10 years after the accident, I never talked. People used to ask me, and I used to tell them, what's gone is gone behind me. I want to move forward. I am back in the cockpit. That's what I want to do because I did my best. In that cockpit, with everything available to me, I did my best. And it was a big learning for me. I learned and I wanted to be a commander to be able to take flight safely, it's our responsibility. People sitting behind us have given them their trust and taking them A to B safely. It's our responsibility. It's a challenging profession. It's a stressful profession once you're in the cockpit. But you are taught for it. You don't feel anything. The more you fly, the more years you have, everything you can handle. That's part of our life. That's part of our training. So every pilot, I think, knows. And then one bad day happens, you can't write off your life or profession on that. You have to learn through it and walk forward. And that's exactly what I did.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you're going to tell that story, and we'll have to do another interview when that book comes out.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah. No, but I can understand your perspective of once you were done with that and you were moving forward, just you don't want to talk about it anymore. But I think it's an important contribution to history for us to hear it from you.
Yeah, and my publisher also feel that's also will be a good motivation and inspirational book because they would in spite of what happened and how you came out and what all you managed to do, you came back to that cockpit. You came back and you proved next 20 years, 23 years that, you have flown in command on all Airbuses. So, they have in fact encouraged me to write that book. And it's still not finished in the sense it has to go through 2-3 editing and all that. I'm really a flyer, not a big writer, but the stories we have are so fascinating that we just want to put them in paper.
Well, I was going to say that it's not evident to me. I do every once in a while say that sometimes I read a book that is clearly written by a pilot and that I want to be a writer writing a book. But I did not get that sense here. This was very well put together and very well edited. So can you just give us a little bit of the process? Because I love to talk also about writing and publishing to hopefully inspire other women to do what you've done, to tell their own stories or to tell the stories, of their contemporaries or our historical figures who haven't been written about. So tell us a little bit about how you put this book together and got it published.
Yeah. So that itself was not also as easy as it looks. But I would tell anybody who wants to write, they have a story to write, they want to talk about it, do it with your heart. Once you know what you're writing and doing and you're passionate about, there are ways that will open up. There were many publishers who refused. there was one big publisher who now, of course, wants to tell me, next book we would like to publish, but they wanted me to pay them. And I said, no, what I'm writing, I know people will love to read. First of all, people who are anyway fascinated with a profession like flying, and then a women pilot, and the story and history of women pilot. So I completely put them down. Though my sister was saying, don't worry, I will help you. I said, no, I know that this book will get a bit. It took me nearly 3 to 4 years, Liz. First, I collected all documentation, sat down to write. You have to have a mind flowing. You need to have that space and time to be calm. And, so there were days where you couldn't write. There were days where you wrote very well. Then I found a good friend who helped me go to an editor, and I sat down with her. And like that, I met this publisher. The minute I talked to him, 3 publishers had told me, no, this will not sell. Who want to read about pilots? I said, these are real stories. These are stories that has to be documented. These are stories which people around the world should know, because we women have made history, but it didn't make sense to them. So finally, when I reached this publisher in a party with some friend of mine introducing that he publishes book. He's a good publisher in India. He's published many books on aviation. And when I was talking to him, he told me, look, share me your card and number. My office will get in touch with you. So within a week, I hear from them, and there was a meeting. And the first thing he said, when you were talking to me about your manuscript, it seemed like it came from your heart and passion. I was so fascinated that I got interested, and I said, wow, there are no books on women pilot, and I didn't even know women pilot were flying from 66. I'm sure people in India want to know. And it didn't take much time. My agreement was I would sit with the designer to design the cover. I'm very particular. I'm a very professionalist. I wanted exactly to forecast my Indian tradition of a sari. You see this pant underneath? That's uniform what we wear, the shoes what we wear. I sent my own cap to her, my pink cap.
So she could get it right.
Yeah. I said, no mistake on this. I want the cover impressive.
It is impressive. It's gorgeous.
And once this was done, the pilots never give up in life. We never say die attitude. I wanted the Minister of Civil Aviation to launch this book. And I kept writing to them, and I would get no response. So I started calling the personal assistant, the PA of the minister. And you know how rude they are. 100 calls come every day. And they said, Madam Minister has no time for all this. I said, there must be one day when the minister meets the public, general public. I'm a pilot. I've worked for 29 years in Air India, and minister should know that. So he kept, for months he kept saying no. But I didn't give up. So finally they called me one evening and they said, okay, there's only 5 minutes you have. You come at exact time at 4 p.m. and minister is very busy. He will probably give you 2-3 minutes. I said, fair enough. I promptly reached there, took this first copy of my book. And when minister saw this cover, he was so impressed. He said, I am so impressed. There is a book written on women pilots. I didn't know my country had women pilots like that. And so he launched the book. And he said, my office will get in touch. They organize everything. I didn't have to spend again. And he officially launched my book in March 2020.
Oh, that's such a great story.
Civil Aviation Minister of my country, and I'm so happy. He took a book from me and he said, Captain, please sign this copy because I will personally keep it. And I think that was something I really appreciate his, humbleness, or his, he was so polite and nice. So sometimes you have to break rules. I kept calling them. I knew this book should have a value. It is more like a history. It's not a storybook or something where it talks about things which never could be. It's not something, no. fiction which just imagined. It's something that happened, and the girls have still made a mark in the world. So that's how, I think so everybody who wants to write never should think, if you have a good story, you have a passion, write, even if it's not the best language. Editors will help you improve the language. Though for a book like Flying, I told them you can't change certain words and sentence because the meaning of flying goes. So I had to really sit and re-edit with them in case there was certain missing word for that sentence had to be added, because see, really the concept of flying changes there. Besides that, I would say never give up if a publisher refuses. We know J.K. Rowling had to go through many, many publishers before, and she's today world known. It's the same way. You write with passion, take it to numerous publishers. Somebody will hear your heart and get it published. And
Manisha, you've given the world a gift. You've given us a gift I love to talk about how these stories are full of tenacity, adventure, and courage. But man, your tenacity, not only to write the story and do it well and make sure that it was presented beautifully, but also to get the minister. I just think that's fabulous. And look, I mean, now, we're going to talk about it in the book club here in the United States. We'll have a couple of meetings, but like I said before, Kathy said, come stay with me, and I'm going to come to Australia next week. And we're going to do a book club discussion and cultural exchange with the Australian women pilots. So they're having their conference in March, and that's why I'm going, for the Australian Women Pilots Association annual conference. And we're going to do a book discussion on March 15th with you and your friends in India. I am so excited about this and just cannot wait.
Yeah, likewise. And all the girls pilots who have already talked about this 15th of March, they are equally excited. And I'm circulating it to some of my family members who are non-flyers, but they must know that women around the world, how and what challenges they've gone through. And I think I am really happy. How you found my book, where you found it, I don't know. But it's such a lovely platform to be on. And I'm so happy talking to you. And, now from US to Australia, wonderful. And let me tell you, yesterday my interview and talk with the Dr. Juneja from ICAO, she's picked up 10 books to be given. She told me to send her 10 books, to which she's going to give on 8th of March. So, she was also promoting in Canada. And I'm happy it's reaching places. And I'm happy people are learning about our history of women pilots. And I look forward for our 15th March and, the interaction with the Australian. And I would once again say you're more than welcome to visit Delhi and be my guest. I would be happy.
I'm coming. I'm telling you, I'm coming.
I will drive you around and show my beautiful city also.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. Manisha, did we have a chance to talk about everyone and everything that you wanted to talk about today?
There are one or two things from the book which I would like you to highlight if you can. The first, of course, I had talked about this original letter from the ministry which refused Prem Mathur being highly qualified on gender base. And we have proved to them that gender has nothing to do with any profession, especially arts. So the second most important thing is when Durga Banerjee was applying in the airline's job, whenever she would write her name, she was not called. And she knew she's highly qualified. She had a Dakota endorsement. And endorsement in those days in 50s was not heard of, but she's done it. Then she says, and this is quoting her, I kept getting no response till one day I decided to omit the Miss part and wrote my name as B. Banerjee. Promptly, I got a call for the interview. So again,
Right.
that gender played such an important role during those early years, but she didn't give up. And more interesting, I'm sure you must have read about Anila. And this I'm talking about 1991 incident where a passenger seeing the women as a commander wanted to get offloaded because he said the airlines have gone crazy. They are sending women as captains. I don't want to fly. Not knowing how much training one goes through before becoming a
Right.
commander, how many years of experience, what training. And my last chapter, that's why it's completely on our training. Because I think this profession,
Hmm.
like none other, the kind of training we go through every 6 months, something or the other. Passengers till 90s were not ready to accept us while we were flying from 60s. These are the highlights which I wanted to people to know about, read, and also understand. Till today, women have been flying from 66. Not one of them have had an emergency which they could not have. Not one of them have not got that aircraft down, whether they had a hydraulic failure, engine failure, bomb scare, or whether how much weather can play a turmoil. So I mean, it's a skill, it's a profession. You are trained, you learn, and you grow into it. That should be what we should be treated as, not as a gender, women or men.
Well, hopefully your book will go a long way to educate people who maybe still are ignorant and say stupid things to us. It still happens here all the time, too. I wonder if you could tell me, from your perspective, how has the culture in India shifted from when you had to hide from your family that you were interested in aviation? Um, how has it shifted? Are young women still expected to get married right away?
No, things have really changed. Now, and today, like I feel the world has shrunk. In a touch of a button, you could know anything happening anywhere in the world. Social media is so active. The youngsters are a different league today. So today, uh, there are many women who are opting. They know themselves. The family pressure is no longer there. Their spouses understand. Their children understand. Uh, they don't have to face uh, nothing like what we went through. The flying school accept them, and like I joke, very soon the sky will be with women. There'll be less men. We'll be, we'll be so many. In the last batch of the Air India, there were 16 women and 14 boys. So we
Oh,
outnumbered
wow.
the boys. Where there used to be
Wow.
one out of 24, I was the one. There used to be one per batch, whether she will manage, she'll do. Now there are, so things have definitely changed. The acceptance within the family, outside, in the society has completely changed. And this is more, I would say, because the way the world has moved in the last 10 years or 5, 7 years, where everything on the social media, everybody's out there to do what they want to do, and there is no stopping. And same is in India. India has advanced completely on that.
Air Force is open to women too?
Yeah, fighter planes. Yeah, they are flying the bigs and they, which was never heard of.
Yeah, I was going to mention, you said something about social media. You have some Indian women on social media that have like millions of followers. It's amazing.
And three of them are pilots. Huh? They're flying the 78 and 777. They're very active. I don't know how they get the time. I am pretty bad in that.
It's so inspiring. And so, okay, I need to know from you, how did India get to such a high percentage of women in the cockpit? 12%. How did you do it?
I would again thank my seniors, the women who actually started this journey and didn't leave it midway in spite of all the hiccups and discouragement. The second reason is we proved it that we are there to stay. No marriage, no family, no children. None of the girls quit because of any of those reasons. We were asked in our interview. They didn't ask us about flying. They said, oh, once you get married, you'll have a husband, you'll quit. Or if not for your husband, for your children, you'll quit. But none of us quit for any of those reasons. If people left for other reason, like I did medically or any other reason. So women proving themselves and really excelling in this profession opened up doors for other women. The seniors, we would go to schools and colleges and talk about this profession and how and what they need to do to become a pilot, encouraged. And also, uh, through word of mouth, we helped each other. I still help the youngsters who approach me uh, to guide them through the profession, help them in whatever way. I think the world um, did not give so much of encouragement to women or to the profession by itself. In the sense, they didn't talk about this where women can take it as a profession. Whereas here we did. And this encouraged women to go, families to understand there are more women. And it was a well-respected profession. It's still looked up upon, and uniform always talks. Any uniform talks. When you come in that uniform, you get that salute. You know that uniform is what is talking about who you are. So all that put together, it became a line where women wanted to get in, a profession where women, so the number kept increasing and each one proved themselves better than the other. So we became number one. And you will be surprised, we were the first in the world to have all women crew in 1985, commercial airline. We were the first in the world. World was not ready. I mean, I hear of stories that Lufthansa, the male pilots, told them that we will not fly for the women, and that women was asked to quit. So, those stories didn't happen here. We proved ourselves. And I would also thank my company, which gave us the encouragement by asking the colleague if there is one girl in the orientation of our, uh, when we joined the company, there's an orientation where the director talks to the students, trainee pilots. And when there is one of us sitting there, they will say, each one of you are here to be a pilot. And we have a lady here, and she's also a pilot and must be treated as one. So I thank our seniors there, and they understood our certain times, our need and requirement for family and for children. They would give us day flying, and they would give us some leave, if unpaid leave and things like that. All that put together, it encouraged us to continue our profession. And that's how women joined more and more.
Well, congratulations to you all. Manisha, thank you for this wonderful conversation. I'm so looking forward to our discussion on the 15th. It is lovely to meet you. Congratulations to India and to you. Thank you for sharing all of these wonderfully inspiring stories.
Thank you so much for having me on board, and I look forward for our next interaction on 15. It was lovely talking to you, and I've enjoyed every moment of this conversation between us.
Me too. Thanks so much for listening. Sign up for the Literary Aviatrix newsletter to stay up to date on book news and discussion dates and times. I'd like to thank the Women's Soar Group. The Women's Soar Group is a media company that gives women a platform to express themselves. Blue skies and happy reading.